Hello and welcome to the Animation Industry Podcast. My name is Terry, and my most controversial opinion is that cats are overrated. Today I'm chatting with Asli Bulut, who is a development production manager at Industrial Brothers here in Toronto. She's going to share more of the fancy-dancy business side of animation, as well as the ins and outs of what she does as a development production manager, and her extremely interesting career journey from studying film production in Turkey all the way to moving here to Canada to pursue it professionally. So, without further ado, let's just jump in. Hello, Asli. How's your evening going?
It's good. Thank you so much for having me in this podcast. I'm very excited and nervous a little bit because before I'm a guest, I was an avid listener of this podcast. So be here as a guest is kind of thrilling for me. So I'm so excited.
I am also thrilled, also because we met in real life at a Taffy conference, and then we decided to do this, and here we are finally doing this. So I'm excited to chat. And also, I think you're going to bring a unique perspective of the development side of things and production side of things and business side of things that a lot of animators don't typically think about. And, yes. I think you can add a lot of value there. But let's start with where did things start from you? Because you came from Turkey and now you're in Toronto. Mm-hmm. Other than tea and the commonality of those two things, how did you end up here?
Well, it's not a long story, but a story that I love to tell. So when I was in university, I studied in Ankara Bilkent University. I studied communication and design. I went to Erasmus exchange at Bournemouth University. They have very well-known film department there. And I had a class there about film industry in North America. And my teacher said that, well, everybody thinks that Hollywood is where you should go, but actually Canada is Hollywood North, and their film industry is very promising. You should consider about that. And I'm like, I love that idea. First of all, I know French as well. So I was like, okay, that's going to be a very easy adaptation to a foreign country that I'm planning to leave and do my job. Second, they call it the Hollywood North. So it's not in States, is in Canada. I love it. So I start to see my options at my senior year, and I came across with a program at Centennial College called Film and TV Business. So this is, I think, very unusual to say, but I always interested in the business side of film and TV. Not the art, not the set, not the lights, but the money. How you make money, how it becomes so popular, how you can actually become cult and people keep spending money on your idea. So I was like, I specifically want to learn how to do that. So this program was perfect for it. I learned how to do tax credits, how to apply funds in Canada, how you advocate for the artist, staff, crew on your set, how become a producer, but a leader that's very compassionate, inclusive, and most of all, activist. So I love my entire 9 months in that program. And before I finished it, I actually landed my very first job. It happens very unconventional, but again, after an advice I got from an alumni, she said, it's a very interesting country, you'll see. You never know when you're going to find your first gig. I was broke, and my family said that, Asli, you're by yourself. After 6 months, you need to figure it out. I applied every single job position in the neighborhood I'm living in, in terms of ice cream parlors, yoga studios as a receptionist. None of them hired me. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And then all of a sudden I said, okay, I'm coming from a very big family with very little cousins, and I'm very good with kids. I think I babysit. So I create a profile on a website, says that this is my name. I'm only babysitting people who work film and TV. That was the ad I put. And a couple days later, my first boss reached out to me and said that, I think you're perfect for us because I'm working on film and TV. I have a son and we like to meet with you. And I went to their house, and just because I'm going to take care of their kids, they asked a bunch of questions and then answered that. At the end, they say, okay, perfect. We'll keep in touch. 2 days later, I receive a phone call. My boss is calling me, asked me to come to his office and pick up a key. And I was thinking that they probably going to give me the key for their place. But he hired me as his visual effects assistant. He said that I really impressed with your like story, and you said that you know how to do tax credit. We know someone to do that. So this is how I landed my very first job before I finished my school. And after I graduated from Centennial, I kept working there until pandemic hit.
Wow.
When the pandemic hit, the like live action was halted, and unfortunately, we all got laid off. That moment in my life was very stressful because I was about to complete my immigration process and become permanent resident. And the most important thing, you should have a job. And I didn't have one. So what I did is I met someone a couple of years ago during Toffee, actually, at the conference, a lady who really liked my scarf. And I got her email address then. And I just sent a cold email to her and say that, hey, pandemic got me thinking, I think I should go to animation. This is actually how I felt. It was just the moment that I need to do something. And she got back to me and said that, you know what, we actually have an opening position. Would you like to have an interview? So I finished my first job on a Friday and started the next one in animation on Monday. So it was so stressful, but I had to do what I got to do. And I start learning as I'm adapting the new company that I never met anyone in person. And something magical happened. I was listening to your podcast my entire career because I was doing overtime a lot. I was too tired to read anything or watch anything. So I listened as I worked overtime. I learned so many people working in so many different positions in this industry. I already know. And all of a sudden, when I started my new company, I heard my today's boss voice on the podcast, and I learned about his story from your podcast. I'm like, this is amazing. I know these people, even I haven't met them in person. So this is how I ended up in this industry and kept working. And last year I become in September development production manager at Industrial Brother. And here I am. That's my story, how I ended up here.
Wow. I feel like I need a moment to process. First of all, I think it's amazing that this podcast helps you, but also the crazy coincidences that got you here. So you decided to babysit, but only film people as you're in,
yes.
And then your boss didn't even say what he was hiring for you for. You just showed up and he's like, here's a job as an assistant.
Well, I think he was hiring for a nanny, and he also needed an assistant. And
still, it's crazy.
Could see both in me, and I'm like, yeah. I mean, and that's another funny detail about that. That studio was working on *Handmaid's Tale*. Yeah. And I was reading the book on the way to Canada at plane. And I love that book so much. When he told me that my first gig will be visual effect assistant for *Handmaid's Tale*, I almost had a heart attack. It was such a beautiful coincidence, like you said. I felt like I belong this industry and I want to do something good in this industry from that.
Your story honestly feels like a TV show or something. Oh my God. Showed up to babysit and then works at a film company, and then somebody you're wearing a cute scarf, or somebody's a scarf leads you to the next job too. It's crazy. But okay, so from my perspective, it sounds like you're following your intuition a lot with your career. Would you say that's true?
So I think my superpower, and I think it's very important, anyone who's working in production or a leader role, I listen a lot. Yeah. I listen to people I met. I pay attention to details, and I remember those details. And then I follow my intuition. But the first thing is I actively listen anyone my path crossed in this industry to benefit my career. So then I follow my intuition. I feel like that's missing for most of the people, and they're losing a lot there. You really want to talk about yourself and pitch yourself or your ideas, but anything makes your point stronger and more not realistic, but memorable is if you listen the other person and then react to it. I would say I trust my intuition, but before I listen everyone I met and get to know them.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I'm wondering, you know, practically speaking, how do you also, you know, you listened, you use your intuition for what the right connection is for what it might be, but how do you also get that person to trust you, you know, like to show up and to babysit and to be an assistant, and then this lady 2 years later, et cetera, and also to work your way up in the roles you have? I feel like you need a lot of trust from the, like, build trust from the other person too, that they would give you that chance, because people are bombarded all the time with, you know, do you have a job? Can I work here? Blah, 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 blah. Like, why have you stood out, do you think, in
So
these cases?
I always try to be authentic. Like, I never hide my background. I never make my name easy to pronounce. I introduce myself Asli, and if anyone having a hard time, then I say, you can call me Ashley too, but you know, it's Asli. So I think people trust people who doesn't have any problem to put themselves forward, because it puts you in a very vulnerable position. And they want to look at you and see if there's something wrong with you. And eventually they realize this person actually listening to you and try to solve your problem. That's how I trust, how I built trust with people. I also try to understand what's the other person most not I don't want to say fear, but something they're hiding, but they really want to say something. I encourage them to do that, because what I realize in this industry, diversity is actually our strength. If I have a team that everyone have confidence and feel calm to express themselves, we always produce something valuable and irreplaceable, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think when I encourage people to do that, that's also built the trust. And sometimes when they want to vent, I again sit down and listen them venting. I think that's also forced their trust towards me.
Yeah, I mean, this is making sense. So when you meet somebody, you prioritize listening to them and showing your confidence of who you are as well, which makes you memorable. I think that makes sense. I mean, here we are chatting from, when did we meet? Like October last year or something?
Yes, at Tuffy. And I literally walk to my colleague Joel and say, I know Terry, I'm following him, I know his podcast, please introduce him to. That's how we met. Exactly.
Well, here we are. Yeah, I love that. That's amazing. And also, I feel very humbled that you would want to meet me as well.
Oh, I like the podcast.
Me too. Great. Oh my gosh. I don't even know what to say. I should just let you talk
I
about your...
actually watch you doing silly wizard ducks pitching on Tuffy.
Yeah.
That was the Tuffy I met the lady who likes my scarf.
Oh, no way. Interesting.
Yeah, same time. Yeah.
I don't remember any scarves from that day. That Tuffy, honestly, for me was a blur because I was so nervous about presenting the whole day. Like, I know I met a lot of people, but I don't really remember anybody. Because my brain was just like, I was just like sweating the whole day and just being like, oh, I hope I'm not like super gross when I get up on stage at the end of this.
It's hard to pitch to a lot of people. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I really think it takes a lot of confidence to live in one country and then learn about another country and be like, I want to go there. That's something I actually struggle with. Like, I really, really find that my home base is kind of in here in Canada. And like, I've never really considered moving away to find work. And so I think that's really, that's really cool that you did that.
Well, I have to do that. I own to that to myself, my little version. I was always like sassy. Not many people liked it. They tried to change it too, to be honest. But I'm glad I didn't, because otherwise I wouldn't ended up here or having this podcast.
Yeah.
That's why I like to encourage anyone who listen to me. If you feel your heart seeks anything, you should follow that. Yes. And if it's your career, well, you're one of the luckiest person on this earth because you're doing and making money what you like.
Totally, yeah. I think that's a really important point. If your heart wants to do something, you should follow it. And I have to tell myself that all the time. There's so many things that I want to do that I'm like, oh, it's too much work, or like, I won't do this, I won't win, or I won't get it. And then the things that I do put effort into, then they seem to work out great. Just a little bit of backtrack. I'm wondering if you were taking a film production course in Turkey, why didn't you pursue film production in Turkey then?
So, when I was studying in university, it was a very rough time in terms of political turmoil. We were hitting by ISIS a lot. I witnessed a military coup and a bunch of other awful things, morbid things that I never wish to anyone to witness. At one point, I was looking at myself and said, I'm not able to do my job in this country, because entertainment business is getting hit hard every time something very bad happens and keep happening. On top of that, being a woman in Turkey and working film and TV is very hard, very tough. It's very masculine dominated industry. And I know it would be way too harder for me to survive there because I cannot hold back, and that wouldn't working out for me, which happened many times when I was doing the internship. But I went to one interview to give it a chance, and at the end of that interview, I made my mind and said that I need to go global. I need to drown in a big ocean if I want to do this job. And that was my push to like, okay, you got to go to North America. It's going to be, it was tough, by the way. Like when we're telling the stories, it's like movies. People think that there was no hard days. No, there were hard days. When I came to Canada, the college went strike for 5 weeks, for example. It was such a big shock for me. I'm like, they were asking me to hitting the library when I paying thousands of dollars for a program. There was times that I suffer from vitamin D deficiency because I'm coming from a very sunny country, and Canada is very cold and doesn't have a sun for a very long time during the year. Things like that. But none of them is you can figure it out. And that's the beauty of the adventure. Whoever's asked me that, how is moving to Canada? I was like an amusement park. I've been in the many roller coasters, up and down, but I enjoy every single ride. Yeah. That's why I stayed there and didn't want to go, or at the moment, don't want to go back to Turkey to do my job.
Interesting. So now, I really like reflecting myself on where I've come from and whatnot. How does it feel now that, you've been in this senior role for a little bit now and sharing your story from, it sounds like there's a lot of barriers and roadblocks in Turkey to pursuing the thing you wanted to do there, and then coming here and dealing with all these mishaps and going this crazy sitcom route. Like, how does it feel now?
So I really enjoy and kind of pat on my back. That's also very important. I want to tell everyone that you should like sometimes congrats yourself and celebrate it. I'm celebrating what I ended up after 7 years. Like, oh, yeah. Not 7, sorry. 6 years that I've been moving here. And what is the best thing about to be in that position? People see my name and they realize that's not a Canadian name. Comes to me, especially immigrants around the world, and ask me that, what should they do in order to end up like that? And I always telling my story, but being honest about how hard it gets. And I'm telling that I'm hearing you and I'm feeling you how hard for you too. But I try to say that find a way, make it work, because you own to that to yourself.
No, I think that answers my question perfectly. Sharing your story is exactly one of the big reasons why I have this podcast. It's, I was obsessed with figuring out how other people did it. And, finding out that information is so tough, and just grounding the stories and making it real, and also, sharing the hardships you have to go through. And it just helps people not feel alone. So at least it did for me. So.
Yeah, and like, again, no one's story, even the most successful person you think, has very interesting details in their story. I try to be honest about that. I want to say that I babysit to land this position. I want to say I'm wearing a scarf and someone give me their email. Like, it's small coincidence, but this is how it works actually. There's no secret.
Well, yeah, it's coincidences, but you also were pushing yourself into these scenarios, and you know, your confidence to go forward and everything you gave up and moving here and going through all these hardships leads you to do, I mean, not crazy, but crazy things like sign up for babysitting for film people because like you've tried all the other avenues. So, and hey, what if that didn't work, it would have been something else, you know, because you were pushing to make it happen. I think that's super interesting. You know, I also wanted to chat about I think it's interesting that you have a love for the business side of film and animation specifically, because a lot of people who get into this industry, you know, their instigating moment was seeing cartoons as a kid and being like, oh, this is real, I can make this happen, and then wanting to do it. But you are more into the numbers and, you know, how to, you know, sell ideas and stuff. So can you talk a little bit about what really excites you about production and development?
Absolutely. So my fascination to film and TV also starts with a movie that I watched when I was very little. I don't even remember the memory. My mom told me that I was 5 apparently, and Pinocchio was on the theaters, but the live action gothic one, like, so it's not proper for the kids. So when we were watching it, when the whale opened its mouth and we see the Pinocchio and Geppetto walk out of it, my mom said that I climbed to the seats and screaming, how do they film this? This looks so expensive. So that's how I actually start to
You were thinking about the money at 5 years old already.
Like, this looks so expensive. Like, who paid to whales and like ask him to open the mouth and walk out to 2 actors? But my interest bent to money and film business more and more when I'm in the high school, because I start to pay attention what's popular, why it's popular, who investing that, and why they're investing that. And I started to do researches and came across with multiple stories. For example, when Warner Bros. Tell George Lucas that they don't want to own the merchandise right of Star Wars, I'm like, worst business decision ever. Things like that fascinate me. Now I'm using this for my benefit while doing my job. For example, at the moment, one of the thing I love the most to doing is actually following the stock market, because most of the streamers that we know and follow and actually greenlit the projects have stocks, shareholders on New York stock market. And if they lose money, they start cutting the stories. They don't have confidence to the product they're selling. So I tried to like going the back door and understand how those executives make decisions to buy anything, and try to inspire the people I work with towards that, giving that information. I feel like this is missing when we are doing pitching, selling in an industry, to understand why investors, why shareholders like something or doesn't like something, which is allegedly affects the executive decisions to go forward with an idea or not.
Right. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. You know, obviously shareholder value increases when the company profits and quarterly results are great, et cetera. But how do you connect that to art itself when you're talking to artists and saying like, you know, I'm in development and we're looking for things that are going to increase my company's value and, you know, revenue and all these things. What is the connection there between the two? Because people are coming up with ideas all the time.
Yeah, so I also like pay attention to history. That history has also bent a lot and shaped a lot the film industry and what's happening around us and how people consume theater, movies, or content. I want to give an example. At the moment, we are living in a post-pandemic recession, high inflation area right now. We all went through a communal trauma, and we have a tendency to nostalgia. That happened many times in the history. That happened in the World War II. That happened during the Cold War. That happened in 9/11. And now, for the people who are greenlighting shows, it makes more sense to go with remakes, because people want to watch what they watched before. So they're going to invest money towards that. So I try to find those details from the business stories like business decision stories and developments in history, and make a assumption, and give that assumption not to artists directly, because artists not necessarily making business decision to go forward in the big studios, but the people in the leadership position. And those people is actually helping and inspiring artists which way we should go. Or they come up with an idea, we package it that way so it can be sold to the people who are actually giving the money or invest the idea. So that's my role. And I'm rookie at the moment. I want to say that out loud. I just started development. But those interests I have, like stay hungry and stay like very curious, help me to get that position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, you know, what you just said is very interesting to me about the remakes, because, you know, I've never really considered it as a thing where people are drawn to nostalgia because times are tough and so they want to feel comfortable. I've always considered it as more of like, you know, profits are down, people aren't going to the theater, et cetera. So the big companies they know they have heavy hitters and they're going to invest in those rather than a whole bunch of new ideas that might not bring them profit, like the 80s, for instance, where, you know, every movie was being tested out and that's where we have all these crazy gems from. So you're continuously looking for insights that will help from a development standpoint create things that people are going to want to watch. Does that make sense?
Yeah, as much as I can. And again, like it's such a hard thing to do by yourself, because I only coming from one background and one world perspective. In ideal world, in the studio or the studio I'm at right now, I think that's a benefit. We have multiple people from multiple backgrounds to put something into table, and then we figure out one big idea. I'm just the one tunnel, not the entire thing. I might be wrong. I might miss some details that needs to be paid attention. So another thing, I think another responsibility I have in my job, to have those people has a voice. It doesn't matter their position or if they're artists or the coordinator. They're coming from different background. They have some ideas. They consume this media as an audience as well. And whatever they say, it's so valuable. So again, I'm listening and taking notes and try to find or verify their idea in my research.
Yeah.
And that's how we help development and artists.
Interesting. Okay. So like when I was in the business world and I was like a market analyst for a vitamin and supplement company, like a lot of my job was to figure out what was trending in the US, numbers wise, sales wise, in Canada, et cetera, what people are buying, what flavors of things, and to come to like the leadership with, you know, verified information. It's sales numbers, it's volume, it's you know, profitability, like just raw numbers. When you're coming to the like how, and then they would, you know, leadership makes a decision based on what they believe has the best numbers, et cetera. But when you're talking about artistic ideas, you know, how does that transfer to what you just said? When you're, you know, you're adding voices from different areas, you're one cog in a wheel of people making decisions. How does the team decide on an idea when you can't really replicate like actual dollar signs from art, I guess?
Yes, so when that happens, which happens every day, we really pay attention to story. If it has something to say, very important right now in this world, we start to dig and see what it goes. Before, like art always support the story, but story is always the one that I go and analyze and find a reflection in audience word and try to see how it turns to a, when I say money, it sounds very evil, I know. But this actually how the engine goes. And if distributed equally and fairly, is actually benefit everyone who part of this process. But again, like when I pay attention to story and see how it reflects in audience, what make them feel, what it does make me feel, or if it doesn't make me feel, what I'm missing there, I can start to see the potential in it.
But how do you take a story and say this is really connecting with an audience or demographic right now? How do you test that out? How do you, because like, you know, as I'm somebody who likes to pitch, I have a couple pitches running around right now. And, you know, I have my own anecdotal reasons why this story connects with kids these days. But like, I don't have any verifiable, quantifiable evidence that this is actually a huge thing. Like, how do you, from the development side of things, go, okay, these stories are really in right now? Are you looking at what is successful in the market and saying stories that tell XYZ are really good? Like, I don't know. How do you turn that into numbers?
So it's hard to turn in numbers again. Those are all assumption. When we talk about the numbers, we can only bring anything record in the past and make an assumption for the future. But let's talk about demographic, because in end of the day, your show will meet a certain demographic. And we like the idea, we like the story, and we're looking at demographics. So how our team or like this story will meet with the audience. So the audience that we're appealing to, changing their platforms to consume media constantly. Like, it's such a fast moving past trend to keep up with. It's harder to put in the numbers. For example, the youngsters are now watching more and more TikTok, not even Instagram, not even Netflix, not even TV, TikTok. So maybe your show meant to be in TikTok then.
Yeah.
If it's successful there, that's, I think, the missing part of the pitching nowadays. Material should be tested out in the world to be able to talk about the actual numbers. But it determines by the demographic you're appeal to. If your age get a little older, sorry, they're still watching Netflix, so, or like Disney or streaming overall. Then we try to understand what they're looking for in the character. If they see something unique in this character, they can make a connection. So, okay, the connection is there with seeing it, but how are we going to make it as efficient and budget friendly as possible? Then we go back to story there, and we see that we analyze every single part of the story and make sure we need it in order to support our character, support our audience ideas about our character. So to answer your question, we are constantly analyzing the reaction of the audience and try to make an assumption it will gonna successful or not.
Yeah.
Sometimes the timing is not good for multiple reasons. Like, for example, we're going through a recession. Kids are not feeling or knowing about the recession, but they're living in a post-pandemic world. And even they have some nostalgia and they want to see something already successful or already they're familiar with. Not even success, familiar with. So the industry for now pivoting that way. That happened multiple times in the history. So my job is find those history parts and make an assumption for the future. Yeah. It's a puzzle. It's fun, but I wish I said that here's the number, Terry, and this is how we're doing it. No, but I am trying to see behind those numbers, because at the end of the day, yes, numbers what we have and convince the people who make decisions, but it's the people we're connecting.
Totally. Yeah. Makes sense. You know, I have a lot of interest in picking your brain on these areas because, like, my brain personally, I have the artist side that doesn't want to care about the business at all. And then I have the business side that, you know, only loves the numbers and everything. And I don't like connecting the two because they're like two sides of my brain. But like, I know that in order to get things made, I have to connect the two. And it's kind of tough for me to do so sometimes. So what would you say to artists who are trying to be successful with pitching very original ideas, but also considering the business side? And, you know, because pitching something random and it getting picked up is such a big risk, and it does happen and there are big payoffs, but most studios are looking for something that's going to, you know, be a heavy hitter or whatnot. So what would you say to artists who are pitching, but they maybe to connect the business side a little bit more to make it more attractive for broadcasters and studios to pick up?
So my first suggestion would be to find a partner who take care of the business side of the project, but that might not be possible all the time. The best way to advocate for yourself, learn the boring stuff. learn
Hmm.
the lingo, learn the terminology, understand the business, understand the stock market, understand how tax credit works, how grant works. This is a lot of work, if you ask me, for one person who's also doing the art. That's why I said like the best way to find a partner. There's
Yeah.
schools in Canada right now teaching people how to become producers. I got that education. I would highly recommend to go and find those people on LinkedIn
Hmm.
and try to make a partnership work with them. Going networking events like Taffy, one of them, I think Sparks in Vancouver, one of them, Ottawa Film Festival, one of them, to meet people who are also interested in business side of it.
Yeah.
That's the best way to do, I think. Because, for example, I cannot draw, I cannot animate, or I don't even understand which color works with what. Like, not like I understand the business side of it.
Totally.
Tell something beautiful and appealing to me, but I couldn't break it down for myself in order
Yeah.
to create it from scratch. So this is a teamwork. I would highly suggest to find your teammates to play this game.
Interesting. I like what you said. You know, it's so easy to just go on LinkedIn, find somebody who's studying to be a producer and be like, hey, you know, I'm doing this. Could we just meet and chat and see if there's a connection? That's great. What you just said also popped a question into my brain. You know, when I'm pitching to producers, I often find that they're not artists. And, you know, unless I have something animated or drawn out, it's very hard for them to imagine what I'm talking about otherwise. So are there any things that when you get presented with a pitch, you just wish that the artist included to make it easier for your life from their artistic perspective?
Well, there's two answers to this question. The first one, I will kind of tell my producer friends, coordinator friends, I think we should also do the quote unquote boring work and understand the artist process as much as we can. We don't have to do that. We don't have to replicate that. But for example, your podcast teaching me how people approach the process from their perspective and their position. I think we should do that work, first of all. The second of all, people in business are very straightforward and they always want to understand what you say right away instead of like giving a big presentation. First of all, you losing your attention and there's so many pitch coming and going.
Yeah.
So many submission coming and going. And you only remember the things very smart and on point. That being said, like you can even like dress like the character to come into pitching meeting. It's one of them. I'm not saying it's gonna work, but if you think it benefits it, for sure.
Totally.
You can even start the pitching somewhere it's not meant to pitch. Like it can be in a network event, it can be TikTok live show, anything. Because if the story good and your art is interesting and appealing and make producer excited, that's all we need to dig more. That's why I said there's a two-way to answer the question.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, needs to understand the process as much as we can because it's impossible to 100%. And the other side is anything memorable is sticks.
So yeah, 100%. So be super clear about things, leave no questions or whatever. You know, also, I guess I was going to ask, how do you stand out when you're receiving hundreds of pitches a year potentially? Like are there things that you wish people were pitching you right now that, you know, that maybe left on the table because people just aren't considering these things?
In terms of ideas?
Yeah. Or
well,
yeah.
For example, I don't see any like pitching for TikTok. Like
I was going to ask you about that
like,
actually.
I want to do a TikTok show. There's a multiple reason that I understand why they don't do that. Like if you guys reading terms and conditions, I personally do. But again, there is a platform there that it can be benefit to artists, especially the emerging one. So I never come across any like pitching documents say that I want to go for TikTok, for example, or I want to do a like story that we can start ideas on Discord. Like the communication channels has changed so much since pandemic.
So you're actually actively looking for these things? Because my experience with pitching is like I've pitched a web series before, nobody was interested because no studios do web series really. And they're like, oh, you should. The number one piece of advice I got from production studios was do a Kickstarter for yourself or just put it on YouTube yourself instead of we're not investing in this. But you're saying that you would actually be interested if somebody puts together a pitch for a specific platform like Twitch or Discord or TikTok and did it in a smart way, you'd be like, yeah, let's consider this, investing in this.
I would do that. And like, again, I'm the rookiest person in my development team. Like everyone else in that team is very experienced and they're all my mentors. But the good thing is they value my ideas because I just become the development stuff. I have some fresh ideas and those can be missed. That's why I'm saying the diversity is so important in terms of like race, background, immigrant, Canadian, because anything you brought to the table can make money.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying at the moment, I realize I've been seeing a lot of pitching, a lot of like shows coming and goes. I never see who come to us and say, you know what, I have an idea that can work on TikTok or Twitch or Discord. Like, I want to hear that because I don't know how to do that. And it's interesting. It's memorable.
Totally. Well, there's tons of people, just independent creators who are already taking advantage of these things.
Oh, yeah.
Themselves.
I love watching TikTok animation. It's hilarious if you look at it. The production value is heavily on the story and the connection. And the art is so interesting. I'm not even saying it's beautiful. No, it's authentic. It's ugly sometimes. It's morbid, but it's amazing. I want to keep watching it. Also, I do understand like how algorithm works, and it can be very stressful for an artist to create content that frequently. I wouldn't recommend that too. There should be a middle ground. Honestly, at the moment, I'm doing a research about that, like how we can make platforms working with algorithm heavily sustainable so for artist production. I don't have an answer yet, but I'm looking for it.
I mean, yeah, maybe a small team of just, I know that BuzzFeed has, I think they're, oh gosh, I forget what they're called, but they have an Instagram and TikTok series of just animated things as well. They're like little blob people. So I'm sure there's a production team behind that because it's quality every time and they pump them out. So
they're actually creating channels through accounts that there are multiple animators putting their content on it and it acts like a channel.
Yeah. Gosh, wow. I have so many questions and my brain is just like, what should I ask next? I'm just curious about like, you know, what you think artists should know about the development side of things that we don't typically see, I guess, because, you know, there's a whole in studios, and people listening to this podcast right now are part of a pipeline where they're just constantly producing art. But then there's a whole behind the scenes of, you know, production, developments, selling stuff. Like, can you give some insights on, you know, how to sell your ideas a little bit better, or when you're selling to broadcasters, or when you're choosing what to invest in next? Like, what are the thoughts that go through your mind?
So that's why I said that having a partner is very important, because this is a full-time job to manage those relationships. I think the thing artists are not aware of the development is a lot of conversation, a lot of diplomacy, and a lot of negotiation. So sometimes even the idea is so good, the timing might not be right. Someone in the decision-making process wouldn't like it because it's way too expensive what it's going to return. They completely seeing it as a business decision. So art can do so much about that. I would say if the ideas are really good and art supporting that, it will eventually pick up when the time comes. The question is, when's the time? What's the right people? That's why it's so important to put yourself forward. I cannot compare my story, the pitching, but my entire career started pitching myself for the positions that I'm not even aware is available. They were all hidden job market opportunity. There was no LinkedIn post, no Indeed post. I just simply meet people, and here I am, Asli. I can make your life better in this way. And they decide to move forward with me. I
Yeah.
would recommend that attitude for pitching anything.
Hmm.
People connection, people management, and have negotiation skills help artists a lot to succeed in development area.
Yeah, I'm just, so to reflect back at that, you're pitching an idea, but you're also pitching yourself as somebody who potentially the right situation comes along, they remember you, I guess.
Exactly. And I know, and I work with a lot of good artists. Sometimes people can be very shy about what they created. And
Oh, yeah.
it's hard to put anything in the world, by the way. I don't know how you guys do that. And like, get a lot of criticism from different people who has no idea the suffer you actually been through in order to put that together. But you still keep fighting in that part for yourself and make sure everyone else that you're doing the best and there is no one out there could do better than you.
Yeah.
It can sound a little bit like, I don't know, annoying, but this is how it works.
Well, coming from an artist perspective myself, I really don't like talking about my stuff because I put my stuff out there to be judged. And for me to judge it externally is like, it's really difficult because that's not the reason that I created it in the first place, I guess, if that makes sense. Is there anything else that you think would be important for listeners to hear about your journey in development, from behind the scenes, or you working with artists, or somebody who's listening to this and they're part of the opposite side of the pipeline? I also, you said you're a rookie, but obviously you have a ton of experience and you're pursuing this and doing well. So, are there things that you would like to share that you think would be interesting for people to hear about what you've learned?
Well, again, like, I think I just want to say that many times, listening is important for sure, but being hungry and curious helps you a lot in this industry because things changing so fast.
Yeah,
It
it's
doesn't matter
scary.
which part you are at. And to be in the community and share your stuff with the community is also help people self-confidence, I figured, especially with other artists. That's also important. Isolating yourself can be very inspiring, and if you're introvert, might be your comfortable zone. But if you really believe an idea, you need to tell the world and share with it. I think you should put yourself forward first and advocate for yourself. Then we are start realizing your story and want to do something about it, invest about people like me, advocate for it. Like I was like, I really believe this is going to be great, but I need to meet with you first.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the most important thing. Also being authentic is the key. It's so hard. I hear you. I had my own obstacles on that. There were times that it doesn't work for me, but against me. But I think it's something you should like hold it tight every time someone question it, because it will guide you in your career and takes you
100%,
where
yeah.
you want to go.
And it confirms who you are and yourself and other people too. I guess one last question I have as a follow-up on that, being an advocate for yourself is tough, especially if you're an introvert. What is something that really helped you be an advocate for yourself throughout your journey?
Because I cannot be anything else. I had no other choice. Like,
No,
I have
yeah.
to do that. Like, if I want to end it up what I'm really working hard towards, I need to be 100% of that. I cannot cheat. I cannot act like I'm A, but act in order that things work and then become B when I got that position. That wouldn't work. It's hard. I hear everyone. I validate. I can do the sanity check. It's so dang hard, nerve-wracking, soul-sucking, everything. But there's no other choice.
Yeah.
So instead of give up and surrender and think about what if every day, you just step up, put forward yourself. I prefer to feel fear and like scared instead of feel regretful. I would
Yeah.
recommend that. I prefer always fear over regret
Wow.
anytime. Yeah.
That's pretty powerful. I fear over regret. Yeah, 100%. And like nobody is going to advocate for you really. And if people are, then I think that's really special. But yeah, you're right. Like I used to have this false thinking when I was in my business career that somebody was just going to pick me up one day and be like, here's an animation job. And because for what reason? I don't know. And I just had this like false hope for so long. And then when I finally decided to like do things myself, then now I'm an animator. So
And I 100% sure it was so scared, right?
oh yeah, it was terrifying. And then, but
But
like, I also had to dig inside myself and say that I have to do this no matter what, or it's not happening. And so, and something that has been struggle for me as well, every time I meet some sort of success in my life, at least what I think in my mind is the goal that I was reaching towards, I naturally stop advocating for myself and I kind of just coast. And it's tough to find that new inspiration again to take myself to the next level. And I'm dealing with that actually right now. Because this is my second year out of school and I'm trying to figure out, what is my path going forward. And so I definitely feel you and it's a real thing. So yeah. I'm wondering,
you have like a lot of Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's fine.
I was just saying that we have a lot of common, like people in this industry, like it doesn't matter where we're working towards, but we all feel scared. We all feel vulnerable, insecure, not sure what's going to happen, embarrass ourselves. I embarrass myself like many times, like, oh my God, sometimes I'm thinking and I couldn't sleep, but it worked out. And it doesn't matter. No one remembers. Only I remember to give myself uncomfortable feeling occasionally. That's it. So this is not more powerful than regret. I can take this every given time, but I cannot take regret to something I never tried.
100%. Yeah. I 100% feel that. And it's kind of refreshing hearing that you're not a traditional artist, like an animator or whatnot, also have that, imposter syndrome and doubt and stuff too. It's refreshing, but it's not great. But it's nice to hear that it's not only just artists who feel this as well. If you care about something and you're pursuing it, I think it's a real emotion. Anyways, as we're wrapping up here, is there anything else that you wanted to share with those listening?
Yeah. So we were talking about advocating for ourselves. So I want to use this platform to advocate people back home in Turkey. You may have heard about that. We had 2 big earthquakes on February 5th and 6th. A lot of people displaced, like 30 million people. A lot of people lost their lives, and we're currently collecting some donations. I will share with Terry the link. We can get every help you can give or every love we can get. I want to thank you so much to give me this platform to be here, your guest. I cannot believe that, actually. I have like a little starstruck too, because I was an avid listener, now I'm a guest, and I hope your listeners can learn something from me, how I learned so many things from your other guests.
Yeah, wow. Well, thank you for saying that. And also, I think it's amazing that you listened to this. Well, thank you so much, Asla. Is that how I pronounce your name?
Asla.
Asla. Thank you so much. I'm super happy that you were a listener for a while and now you've come on. I think that coming full circle, that's amazing. And thank you for sharing the details about Turkey. I think it's important to advocate for that as well. And I'll of course include those links in the description of this chat. And thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure. I've loved picking your brain about development, and I think I've learned some stuff, and I think other people listening are going to learn some stuff too. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. And if you're listening and you want to reach out to Asla on LinkedIn, I'm going to include a link to that, as well as the links to earthquake relief for Turkey. So thank you so much for listening. That's all for now. Okay, bye. The music for this podcast was composed by Will Farmer and the graphics by Daniel Abensauer. I encourage you to look them up if you enjoyed their work.